it.
Whatever.
By the way, do you need to fix the camera?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's done.
Yeah.
Oh, we
That
keep
was-
ending
that was-
perfect.
That never happens. I always have to. Hey, that thing's good though. The little clap. That'll help.
It just helps you get into.
Because the video isn't connected to the sound.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So all you have to do is like 3, 2, 1, and then that way you connect that, you sync at that point, and then the rest is synced
Because I
up.
take a lot of time to get it just right because it bothers me.
Oh,
My
yeah.
Mouth saw.
Because I've literally, I mean, we can get into it. I really don't mind either way. I'm content wherever the conversation goes, but like, R.I.P. That sound is death.
Yeah. It just died.
Oh, perfect stopping point. My goodness, I'm gonna retie my shoe because it's loose and I'm a weird person and that stuff bothers me.
Sometimes I forget to set a timer, and then the camera
No.
will just stop, and then I'll come back and I'll be like, well, it looks like I didn't record all that. Welcome to the Adventures of Bean. I'm Bean, and this is Donnie.
Hello.
Anything you gotta say about yourself?
I love coffee. This is actually local coffee, Angel Falls. Shout out in Akron, where I live. I like coffee. I love Jesus, and I'm married. That's about it.
That's it?
Well, I mean, there's more,
Yeah.
but
There's more layers, you just gotta break them down.
yes, you just they break into subgroups,
Yeah.
and then that's how that.
What kind
falls.
of coffee do you like? You drink
Okay.
a lot? Like,
I drink a lot. This is only my second cup a day. I usually only do 2 to 3 cups. So I'm a coffee snob, coffee connoisseur. So I do like pour over, which is I grind my own beans. Then there's a dripper called the V60 dripper. It looks like a cone that sits on top of your cup. You put a filter in there, you wet the filter, you have the grounds in there, and then you have a gooseneck kettle. And then you have it on top of a scale that measures out in grams. And
I've
then
seen people do that before.
Yeah,
And it
so
looks awesome.
I do it for every single cup, and in my office at work, I have a little bar, and I have a pour over set there, and then that's how I make my coffee. And so I only buy beans from local roasters. So Angel Falls is the one in our neighborhood in Highland Square in Akron, and they're not my favorite, but they're good. I like Artisan, which is in Akron. I like Tremont, which is in Massillon. I like Compass, that's in Akron. Akron Coffee Roasters, of course, in Akron. But then Columbus is another game.
Yeah.
There's just so many in Columbus that it's just like...
Is that where you kind of like learned how to do that?
Oh, it's where I became a total snob. And so like if you met me 2 years ago, I would say if you don't drink black coffee, because that's how I drink it, you don't like coffee. And my goal was to get everybody to drink black coffee. Now I'm more of like a coffee connoisseur. I like coffee. It's a hobby. If you don't like your coffee that way, that's okay. Like, just, do you. I'll leave it to you to figure out how to do your coffee. But there I became a coffee snob because the coffee culture there is beautiful. This cup is actually from Columbus, Roosevelt Coffee Shop, my favorite ever coffee shop. And then on the back has their logo and it says drink more local coffee.
Yeah, that's good. I like to see people buying stuff locally. Support the local groups.
Yeah, shout out to local squads.
Yeah, I think it's better, honestly.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
You know, everybody has those times though that they don't feel like, going out, like they don't feel like making food at home or buying from someone. Like, it's easier to go through a drive-through, or it's easier to go to Walmart and pick up all your goods and stuff. But it just feels so much better, and it tastes so much better when you buy like make your own stuff.
And I will say, there's a common misconception that is, well, Starbucks, Folgers, Maxwell House, Dunkin', they're big companies. There must be a reason that they're big, so then people think their coffee's good. Their coffee's actually terrible. They buy low quality coffee. Now Starbucks is mid. I'll give them, they're like better than like Folgers and Maxwell House. But what they do is they buy coffee in mass quantities and then roast them in mass quantities. So to get a uniform taste, what you have to do is roast it slightly too much, like slightly burn the beans so you get a uniform taste. so that your product's consistent and stuff like that. But then at the end of the day, it's just not as good as it could be. That's why local roasts in small batches, which in coffee, local is 99% of the time going to be better.
Yeah.
There's probably that 0.1% where they're just trash. But
yeah, I think a lot of businesses are like that. A lot of local, like, small business to big business, like, obviously, like, I've been getting into hunting. I'm gonna go hunting this year for the first time in a long time. And
yikes. I can't hunt. I've been hunting one time, and we didn't see anything. It's okay.
That was
hunting's cool though.
When I was younger, I went one time or a couple of times, and we didn't see anything, and I just got burned out. But I'm getting back into it, and I've had my family's real big into it, and that's who I'm getting into it with. So I've had their meat and stuff, and we also at our house
is good.
Yeah, we also at our house we have half a cow and a full pig, and we bought it and had it processed and everything.
Yeah.
That meat is 10 times better than anything you can buy from Walmart or Giant Eagle or
100%.
It's so good for you.
It is.
And it makes you feel good too. Like, you feel healthy.
Yes.
And
I totally agree.
It's just, I don't know. I wish more people did stuff like that, like buy locally, go to your farmer's market, things like that.
Oh yeah.
And
food is 100 times better.
Yeah. Not only that, you're supporting your city, you're supporting a small business, and that's ultimately what keeps everything going.
Oh my goodness, yes.
Yeah, because then you have monopolies that take over, like Walmart,
like Amazon.
Yeah, everything like that. So you gotta support the small guy.
Oh yeah. So that's my coffee end. Coffee's a hobby. I couldn't see myself not doing it.
Yeah, I love coffee. I drink a lot.
So
I wouldn't say I drink like I would say towards 3 a day.
Yeah, I'm definitely not those people who have like the big jugs of coffee and they just like guzzle it down.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would hurt.
I work midnight, so I drink a cup before I go in.
Yeah.
And then I drink a cup in the morning, a cup or two in the morning, and then...
So wait, did you work last night?
No, I'm off. I go back tomorrow night.
Yikes.
Yeah.
How is that?
It's not terrible. I've actually, since I graduated, I've worked midnight, so I'm going on 3 years.
Oh, boy.
I'm 2.5, 3 years now.
How does your sleep schedule feel?
I don't have one. I mean, I really messed it up, because in the summer, I usually pick up a second job, and this summer I did.
Yeah.
So 11 to 7 or 11 to 8 is usually my shift at midnight.
Yeah.
So I get off, and I either come home, take a little nap for like an hour, and then go back to work at like 9, get off at like 5, so like 9 to 5.
Yeah.
So 11 to 7 to 9 to 5.
Yikes.
So then you just sleep in between. And I've kind of learned how to do that. I worked in a factory previously.
Wow.
And I worked midnights there, so that was, 12 to 8?
Yeah.
And that was rough. That was really rough. That was worse than working 2 jobs.
Really?
Yes, because factory work, if you never worked factory
No, I
job,
haven't.
It's very laborious, it's very monotonous, you go in there and it's just, you hate the lights, you hate everything about it. Like,
wow.
It just drains you. And then I would come home, sleep for a little bit, or I'd sleep for a little bit, and then go do a bunch of stuff, whatever I need to get done, because that's kind of why I liked working midnights, is because then I had the day free to do stuff. Like,
right.
I would go take pictures, I would go see family or whatever.
Yeah.
And then but then I would get to the end of the week, and then I would sleep, like, 2 days straight.
Yep.
And that was it, and I just couldn't do that anymore. It was just exhausting.
That's crazy. I've not experienced that.
Yeah. But, where was I going?
Who knows?
We were talking about my job now, I think, but I don't remember what was said.
Yeah.
How do I do it? How's midnight? It's
Yeah, I think that's what I asked. Is how is midnights?
Okay, so I'm working 2 jobs, so that shift's usually pretty long. So you just kind of, the easy answer to your question is just you kind of learn to find sleep where you can.
Right.
And you enjoy it. Whenever you get it, you just do it. But I'm constantly, it's weird for me to have one job right now. Like, it's really odd for me because I'm constantly going. And then when I get done working 2 jobs, come home and do whatever needs to be done at home. And it's just constant. And then
go.
Doing these podcasts, trying to set this up, and I'll be up all night while I'm at work, and I'll be setting stuff up for the next day, editing videos, whatever needs to be done.
Right.
And it's just go.
Dang.
Doesn't stop.
One more thing on the coffee end, I didn't realize this. I'm wearing coffee socks.
You have coffee socks?
Literal coffee socks.
Oh, wow.
So, that was it.
How's the married life? I kind of been interested. I met her before.
Yes, you were actually, fun fact, so it's the same girl at the end of my senior year when we would go and, like, during lunchtime.
We'd skip school and go to Chipotle?
We would go to Chipotle, and the girl that I was dating that worked at that Chipotle, that's my wife.
Yeah.
And so married life is good. We just hit 3 years. It's a fun time.
Yeah.
Has its ups, has its downs, but overall, it's a positive experience.
Yeah, I know. Throughout high school, we spent a lot of time. We were really good friends.
Yeah.
Me and her in high school, so we spent a lot of nights at each other's house and messing around doing stuff.
Hoodlum things.
And I asked him one time.
Oh, jeez.
I texted you and I asked you.
What is my high school self gonna say?
Oh, this isn't high school. This is after high school.
Oh, is it?
I texted you one time after high school. And after you graduated, I don't know if I was graduated yet, but I was like, how's it like being married? And you said to me, you were like, it's like a sleepover with your best friend.
Oh, 100%.
Every night.
Imagine like you're watching Netflix and you are there and then you're like, oh shoot, it's pretty late. I gotta go to work tomorrow. I better go. You don't have to. You just say, hey, do you want to go to bed? Oh, yeah, sure. So then you get to do it again. You get to do it again and again and again and again. And it's great. And it's not like that friend that, like they've stayed too long at your house and you're like, can you just go home?
Yeah.
It's not like that.
Yeah.
At all. It's great.
Yeah, I'm kind of experiencing that a little bit. I mean, I live with my girlfriend, so.
Yeah.
And we've been together 2 years now. Has it been 2 years?
Did you meet her at Maslin or no?
No, she went to Tussle.
Okay.
But I met her through my best friend who went to Maslin.
Okay. I like it. She's a Mustang.
Yeah. They're not cool.
They're not.
She's the queen of the crop. We make fun of her.
Stop it.
'Cause it's a hick school. Nobody knows that.
Yeah.
I mean, if most people that watch this probably know that, but...
Yeah.
Queen of the crop.
Hey, I love Maslin, and my time at high school was fun. I have a lot of regrets, but Maslin has its flaws.
Yeah. Those are things that's one thing I'm indifferent about.
Yeah.
I really am, because some things I'm like, wow, this is really good and it really helps. But then I'm like, why don't they do it different? And I'm like, there's a reason they don't do it different. But I balance. I try to balance it in my head.
There's good and bad to it, and that's totally okay. Am I still a overly invested Tiger fan? Yes. Did I watch the game yesterday? Which is at the time of the recording. We're recording on a Saturday. I did, and I was not happy. I'm overly invested.
I always go on Twitter.
And then you follow Chris Easterling, and he just tweets it all. Yep.
I've done that for the past whatever games I don't go to. This year I can't go to any, so.
Yeah. Well, yeah, of course nobody can.
Yeah.
So, yeah. That's been the fun thing ever since we moved back to Akron. We moved to Akron in June of 2019. So we moved from downtown Columbus to sort of downtown Akron. And I was never able to go to Maslin games while I was in Columbus because it was too far of a drive. I'm not driving 2 hours. No. But, so I'd go to like the McKinley game. Now I can go to every like home game and like the playoff game. So I went last year. I went to like every home game. I believe I didn't go to the Warren Harding one, although Warren Harding streamed it live on YouTube. So I watched it. And there was like one other game. So I went to 8 games last year, and then went to the Warren playoff game, and then not the one after that, or the one after that. But then I went to the I went to the Hoban one, and then I didn't go to the semifinal one, but then I went to the state championship. So I went to like 3 of the 5 playoff games.
I don't remember which ones I went to, but I know I went to the finals.
Yeah. And here's the thing. It was fun. And high school was fun. I got to play for Massillon, which is like what I wanted to do as a kid. That was fun. But
It's a different life.
It is.
When they say, it's time to flip a new chapter, and you're like, oh yeah, whatever. But it's really,
it is.
The older people, like your parents, your grandparents, are like, oh, your 20s are going to be like this, and once you grow up, you won't be friends with any of the people you're with, and, oh, you're not going to be doing that your whole life. And you're a kid, and you're like, none of this is going to change. You guys are going to be my best friends forever, and I'm going to live in Massillon, and I'm going to go do this and this.
Do that.
You don't realize what you're going to do in life until you just do it.
Yeah, it changed. Yeah, my high school experience was weird.
Mine was... I don't know who is more weird.
Yeah, I was just at a transition point. I've been thinking on it a lot lately. There's so much that I wish I would have done different in high school, in multiple facets. Like, it's weird.
See, I think that about myself. I think I could have done stuff different, but then I also toss up that I wouldn't be where I'm at today without those.
Right, and that's the weird conundrum that you find yourself in, is that I could have done things different, but if I would have done them different, would I still be...
And then you think about where you would have been.
Mm-hmm.
Where would I have been if I would have chose this instead of that? And then some things you don't think, you wish you would have done different, but you don't think they would have a big impact, but you never know. They could have had a huge impact.
Yeah. Man.
Like one simple thing, like not going out that one night, or not playing in that one game, or not going to that one practice, or just one simple thing, and you're like, that wouldn't have made a difference, but it could have made the world a difference.
Yeah, definitely. That rings true for sure. Yeah, for me it was weird. I don't even know how to explain it. I mean, there's like certain situations which I can point to, which I would say, yeah, that was Donnie, what are you doing? I just want to like hit my old self.
Yeah.
And then there's like other situations which were really good, probably should have just been tweaked in a little bit of a different way, but then again I was in high school.
You make mistakes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And so there's this weird balance to it all, but then I think if I wouldn't have experienced what I experienced in high school, I wouldn't have experienced what I experienced after high school. And that means that I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah.
So that's kind of for instance, some people watching might know me, some might not. Indifferent on either way. But kind of my goal in high school, my goal growing up, if you grew up in Massillon, Ohio, is that you want to play for Massillon Tigers and you want to play football and all this kind of stuff. It's a crazy town.
Yeah.
So I had that dream. I played football from the time I was in first grade all the way through. And then when I get to high school, kind of my goal, my dream is to play college ball. Where? Don't know yet. Again, there's things I would have done differently, especially academically. My goodness. And then when I was, then when I got to my senior year, it was Coach Moore's first season, and that was a whole point of transition, a whole different way of doing football. His philosophy was totally different than Coach Hall's, which I think has worked out in the long run for Massillon.
Yeah, but the first transition year, it didn't start to work until towards the mid-season, maybe.
Yeah.
The philosophy worked on some kids.
On some kids grabbed it and ran.
But the kids that were doing it, like you,
yeah,
and some of the others, like Dakota, and some of the people that have been playing since like their sophomore year, it didn't stick with them as well because there was already a rhythm, there was already a flow, and then it was a total break. Yeah. But the trouble is then when I was a senior, I got 2 concussions in the span of 3 weeks. It was beautiful. Got one during practice going into week 4. We were playing Steubenville that week, and I remember there was a moment in team session, which is just where offense goes against defense, you run plays. And I couldn't understand the calls they were giving on the sideline. And these were calls I knew, calls I had seen throughout. Yeah, practiced a bunch of times. And then all of a sudden I didn't know what they meant. And I was like, hey, coach, I think something's wrong. I don't know what those are. And so then we did a test. I did have a concussion, so I sat out week 4, week 5, came back week 6, was playing O-line that game against Austintown Fitch. They said during halftime we need really good kickout blocks from our guards. I said, bet. First play from the second half, I kicked out the defensive end really hard, hit him really hard, then also hurt me. I don't really remember the second half. It's kind of like the movie The Hangover where they remember bits and pieces. And then second to last time of being on offense, I told Coach Mazer, I said, hey, I can't see, can I sit out a series to catch, whatever, I get my crap together. And he said, yeah, sure. But the problem was my pupils were so dilated that too much light was getting in, so I couldn't see beyond, like, the linebacker. Yeah.
And so then I had another concussion, was out the rest of the year. And then as I kind of like talked with the trainers, talked with everybody, like the struggle is that the more you get concussions, the more susceptible you are to them. Yeah. And I'd gotten other concussions previously. And the second concussion that year took until December to like fully heal.
Yeah.
So I had to make a decision of whether I was going to play college ball or not. And I was already out for the rest of my senior year. That was no question. And so I decided not to because I was like, okay, like let's look at this longevity. If I play in college and get more, the chances of having lasting effects just go up, 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 up.
Yeah.
And so I had to throw in the metaphorical towel.
See, and that's like it's hard. Definitely in that situation just because of where we grow up and everything.
Yeah.
It's really hard because you're like telling your younger self, I failed you.
Yeah.
In a sense.
In a sense, yeah. And so everything that I had known to that point broke down. Everything just, imagine a metaphorical world, just it breaks down. Just totally gone. And then you kind of had to redefine or place priorities in places they probably should have been already but weren't because you were focused on like football.
Yeah, in a sense, you have to find yourself again. You have to find what you want, really.
Yeah.
Because, like, there's a saying, you don't know what you're doing until you stop doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you stop doing that. And I always tell people, and I try to get it out there, like, reflection and, like, self-reflection is, like, one of my biggest things. You have to be able to look at yourself in what you're doing or what you've done. And you got to be able to build on that. You got to change for the better.
Yeah.
And
that's the thing. So I had that moment now, kind of in the midst of that, like I said in the beginning, what I say, 3 things about me. I like coffee, love Jesus, and I married. Those are my 3. So within that, kind of in the middle of my senior year, I kind of was taking my faith more seriously and kind of that kind of life in that area. And it was starting to become like more real for me. And that was kind of conflicting with where I was placing football at in my life.
Yeah.
because all up to that point, football was like number one.
Yeah.
Like nothing comes in the way of that.
Yeah.
And then I'm coming to this moment, and that, that my faith demands that is number one in my life, and then everything else falls in subjection to that. So I was coming to this moment where these two things are warring inside, and I was figuring out how to do this thing. So then it's almost like this moment came of where I had concussions, wasn't really smart for me to play anymore. And it was actually like a moment of peace for me. There were still things I had to come to terms with, but it was almost like now I don't have to wrestle with that.
Yeah.
I can put that over here, and now there's no more this.
Yeah, and I don't want to say it like that, but that's the only way I can describe it.
Mm-hmm.
Is it's kind of like you almost took I don't know how to say this without it sounding like really bad, and I don't mean it in a bad sense
Just
at
do
all.
it.
But it's
do
like
it.
It's like it was the easy way out of that. Like because
In a
something
sense.
because
In a
something
sense.
happened, you had an excuse to get away from that.
Yeah. And
But,
I will say,
I don't mean it.
No,
like
right. You don't mean it in a way of running from responsibility or running from something good. It was just there was a decision to be made, and one was going to have to prevail over the other. Not that they had to, but for me at that point and where I was at in my life, I don't think I could have held on to football in the same way and then pursued what I was feeling led to pursue. So then after that comes, actually where I met my wife. Like I said, I'm taking my faith more seriously, kind of getting plugged in to my local church, stuff like that. There's a guy named Ray Jeske on 95 or something on 990, ESPN 990. Yeah, he's the guy who owns ESPN 990, and I would be on his radio talk show for football. Well, he's a Christian as well. He asked me if I wanted to come to this Christian conference for high schoolers, for college students in Xenia, Ohio, in the middle of stinking nowhere.
Yeah.
And so then I go with him. I ride with him because I know Ray. He's a cool dude. Old man, but he's cool.
Yeah.
And so I get there, and it's funny how everything worked. One thing I was lacking in my life, in sense of pursuing faith, was I was lacking a community that could help me do that, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't love my friends, like you're still my friend.
Yeah.
You're still awesome. But in that kind of space, I needed someone to push me that way. So if you knew me in high school, you'll notice that halfway through my senior year, something just was like, I stopped kind of doing the same things I was doing. I was kind of shifting towards a different direction. It was a lot of time of transition. And so that's actually where I met my wife at that conference. We didn't like each other. I hated her.
Yeah.
But because I thought she was too bubbly, and she knows this. And she didn't like me because she's from Mogador, if you know where that's at. It's in the middle of nowhere. And so she thought, because if you knew me in high school, I talked way different. And so she didn't like the slang I used. And so she thought I was dumb. And so I thought she was too bubbly, and I don't like bubbly people generally. So, but I met those great people. Actually met my future roommate there as well. So then as I do that, then I meet a pastor there who's speaking, who said he had an internship available in Maslin. And it's Living Water, right on the corner of Wales and Lincoln Way. And so I applied for it, started meeting with him weekly, got the internship, got to do all these really cool things. And then my friend that I met, he's like, hey man, I'm going to OSU. Do you want to come on down, start going to Columbus State, transfer to OSU after 2 years? Call it a day. And I'm like, bet. So then August, jumped, just kind of leap. Hardest moment of my life almost. Moved into an apartment, got a job, started going to school, and life hit hard.
See, it's
and I wouldn't have been there if I would have stayed playing football.
Yeah, that needed to happen for you.
Exactly.
It's just so weird when you're talking and you're saying all these things, and it sounds like everything's so quick, and it feels like that. Like everything just, when you start, it's like everything's slow in your past. Everything was like, oh, that took years, or that, whatever. But then when you're talking about like some of the more recent things, it just goes and goes and goes. And we were just talking about me and how I take on so much, but it's like everything's just like coming in front of me, and I'm opening these doors to this and this and that.
Yeah, you're taking this, leaving this, going here, going there.
Yeah, and it's just, you just jump through life. And that was another thing when older people, they always like, oh, when you get older, it just keeps going faster. And my aunt, she always says that to me because she's, I don't know, 48, 49. She'd hurt me if I messed with that.
Love that.
She's always saying, like, life, it's just gonna keep going faster. You think 20's fast, you know?
Yeah.
You think 30's
the 30s
fast,
come,
and
the
then
40s, and then
wait till you're my age. That's what she always says, and I'm like, oh.
And then next thing you know, you're living in a retirement home.
Yeah, and they're like, I remember high school like it was yesterday, and I was like, I do too, and it's already been like.
Yeah, it's coming up on 4 years for me.
Yeah, like 2. Well, at the end of this one will be 3.
Mm-hmm.
And it just goes.
It goes.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then sometimes I sit back and I'm like, where are the people? And I was like, why don't I talk to them? Why have I not communicated with them? I was like, I don't have anything against them.
Right. Yeah.
Like it's just hard because everybody's life throws you in a different direction.
Yeah, it just branches off, and everybody's branching off into these different.
And like, I think I was probably one of the few people that really stuck with you throughout senior year. Like,
yeah,
you were going to Living Water, and then I started going there with you.
Yeah, you did come that one time.
And
yeah, that's where I interned.
I think there was a couple of times I actually went. Because I went with your girlfriend too.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I was there
at
least once with her.
Oh, well then you went at least 2 times.
Yeah. There's a few times, and I got, it was just like, I was probably one of the few people that stuck around.
Yeah, because there was
and then after high school is completely different stages.
That was the trouble is like I said, my senior year was a total transition of implementing things that I was making the private public, in the sense of like probably that first half I'm still trying to put off this persona that I'm some macho football player that go Tigers kind of thing. Then kind of that transition point where I knew I wasn't going to play anymore, so I'm like, what am I putting on? I can get rid of this. So I guess symbolically, like if you knew me then, I went from like 250 to graduating at 215.
Yeah.
And just like losing weight, getting
that
rid
was
of all
definitely
that.
one big change everybody noticed.
Yeah.
They were like, "Have you seen Donnie? He's so skinny." And
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, he is skinny."
Yeah, there was just no point to hold on to the weight anymore, and so I just was like, we're done. But symbolically, it was making kind of the private life of what I wanted and the direction I wanted to head public, which threw a lot of people for a loop.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't have language to explain it, so I was just kind of like...
A lot of people you just cut off? You just...
I mean,
I wouldn't say you cut them off, but
not
you
intentionally.
Yourself.
Yeah, not intentionally. It was just like...
You didn't have
they
anything
would be like,
in common.
They would be like, okay, going back to where I was at then, hey, bro, you trying to smoke a blunt, try to match? Yeah. And I'd be like, no, I'm cool.
Yeah.
And so then just by that, I wasn't intentionally disliking them. I didn't judge them. I wasn't like, you better stop. Yeah. No, it was just, no, I'm cool, bro. It's cool.
We can hang out after.
Yeah, then they were like,
I feel,
cool.
I relate to that in a similar sense because my senior year was much of a transition period. Because my junior year didn't go well at all.
Really?
My junior year, all right.
Because that was the year I was living in Columbus.
Your guys' senior year.
Yeah.
Was probably one of my biggest downfalls.
Really?
Because towards the end, I was skipping class with you. I was skipping class with whoever.
Yeah.
And I had been to parties with you. I had been to parties with whoever, everybody. Yikes. And I started drinking. I started smoking.
Yeah.
I started getting into that. And then you guys just left. And everybody thought, like, people actually thought in your grade, they were like...
That you were a senior.
Yes, they thought I was.
I remember that. They were like, oh, bet, like, are you ready for graduation? You're like,
nice,
I'm a sophomore.
Yeah. Like, people really actually thought I was going to graduate. And that kind of brought me into that life. And then I was going through a lot of struggles at home. There was a lot going on at home.
Yeah.
And so then my junior year comes. I think I missed the first day of school, honestly.
First day of school, nah, I'm cool.
Yeah, I just didn't show up. But we were living in Canton. My mom lost her job. We were going through a lot of stuff, and I didn't show up to school 88 days.
Really?
I missed 88 days of school.
Yeah.
I just found a piece of paper in, I don't know, one of the bins of my old stuff or whatever, and it doesn't even have on my high school transcript how many days I missed in 2017. I was like, what, did they lose count or something?
Yeah.
Like, did they actually not know?
Wow.
Yeah. And then I found an old report card. It was a 0.4 GPA.
Yikes.
And everything that year was just going downhill. I was into smoking a lot.
Yeah.
All day, every
Right.
day. And I was selling drugs. That wasn't cool. But
yeah.
I was just into that life so deeply. And then my senior year comes. And I went through a lot of stuff. My grandma went to prison. And that was kind of hard on me too.
Right.
So then I moved out. Well, my mom kicked me out my junior year too. So then I moved in with my grandma, and then I moved from there, and I moved in with my aunt. And that was probably the best decision I ever made.
Yeah.
I went to school every day. I got my first 4.0.
No
ever
joke.
My senior
That's
year.
awesome.
And I was on top of stuff, and I was going into college.
Yeah.
Something I never thought. I didn't even think I was going to graduate high school.
Yeah.
And I said something on my Instagram story the other day. I was like, none of you guys probably even thought I was going to graduate, because I didn't even think I was going to graduate.
Right. Dang.
But I just had to get my stuff together, and I did. I went to college. It wasn't for me.
Yeah.
I went for, I don't know, a couple months,
Yeah.
and I was just like, yeah.
You were like, nah, I'm done.
I feel bad when I say this, but I just feel like I don't want to work for a piece of paper. That's not who I am.
Yeah.
A lot of people, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
See, I like to find knowledge in my own way. I like
Yeah.
to use it to my own abilities. I like to do with it what I want.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to apply it to a piece of paper, a test. That's not what I like to do.
Yeah.
And
There's a structure to school that just doesn't fit everyone, and that's okay. It
Yeah,
doesn't mean
'cause-
anyone's less smart. It just
Yeah.
means...
I definitely, I have a creative mind, and there's a different way for me to do things, and it seems like that doesn't work for school. You doing something a different way is not good for school.
Yeah. That makes total sense.
But
see,
I definitely...
No, go ahead.
Okay. I definitely understand where you're coming from when you say there's a big transition.
Yeah.
Because when I went to my senior year, people were always asking me, oh, do you want to go do this? Do you want to go do that? And I was like, no, I don't.
Right.
Like, I'm trying to actually do school and finish graduation and get all that done. And a lot of people didn't know what was going on, and I probably lost a lot of friends. Not that they were good friends or bad friends, some of them good and bad, but I just didn't have the same connection that I had with them anymore.
That
it
makes
was
sense.
just gone.
That makes sense.
We didn't have anything else in common because I wasn't going to parties and what.
No, that makes total sense. Not gonna lie, when I was a senior, I didn't realize you were skipping so many classes.
Yeah.
Because I just thought, oh, bet like he's got his crap together. We just finna go.
Yeah, because your
Chipotle.
senior year's usually the easiest.
Oh, it's so chill.
Yeah, but I was a sophomore and everybody was just taking me with them wherever. Like, I was only like 14, 15 years old, and I'm going to parties, and then, oh, where are you going tonight? And I'm telling my mom, oh, I'm going to Donnie's, and we're actually going these 3 other places.
Over here. And that's the trouble is, honestly, when I was a sophomore, those seniors did the same thing with me.
It's a select few that they pick. Because you were up in football. You started playing. So you're already... See, mine was because my freshman year, I got brought up for like a camp thing or whatever, and I started practicing.
I remember that.
But then my sister was also a senior my freshman year.
So we all knew your sister, but then we also knew... Yeah.
So I had a connection with everybody through one of those two
of those things. And so then those seniors did that with me, and it was a lot worse my sophomore year. So Yeah.
Yeah.
But then it gradually got better.
Mine got worse. Sophomore year, the end of sophomore year is when it started going down, and it just kept going. And then my senior year,
Yeah.
where did that come from? You're
Yeah.
actually coming to school.
Right. Honestly, it's interesting just how all that works together. That's crazy. I didn't know you went through that much of a transition. But there's so many things like I said, I wish I would have done different. Like for example, like, okay, going to Chipotle, going to different places for lunch was fun.
Yeah.
I regret doing that because then collateral is kind of, you end up skipping. And then, going to parties and stuff like that when you don't need to. Not that you can't have fun and you can't get with people.
Yeah.
Not the act of going to the party isn't bad. It was the decisions I made at the party that were bad.
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
so that's like for me, but I know at that time I couldn't go and not make bad decisions.
Yeah.
So I wish I wouldn't have gone to so many of those. There's a lot of things. I mean,
See,
the drama from high school.
Yeah.
There's so much drama that I could have just avoided.
But I kind of avoided a lot of it. Sometimes I found myself in between. Other people would get me in their relationship problems, and I would just be like, that's up to them. You talk to them about that.
Yeah, I'd be like,
that's the most trouble.
How about you call them? Don't call me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the most trouble I found myself in, because a lot of my friends they had girlfriends.
You were the very neutral guy.
Yeah, and I was just like, let's keep this calm. That also brings me to something else. Remember, we would go to Nancy Budner's class.
Yep.
She's still
Nancy's the GOAT.
I put it on Facebook. I said she's number one.
She's number one.
I don't care about anybody else.
Number one.
That's not
GOAT.
That's not true. There's a few.
There's great teachers and there's great stuff, but Nancy.
There's Nancy.
Is just on a different level.
Yeah. But do you remember we used to go eat in there at lunch?
Yep.
And then we used to have our discussions.
Our random discussions.
A lot of them were about religion.
Yes.
And a lot of them were really good. And then
yes.
You had some people that did not know.
They were not interested in talking about any of that.
They were just yelling out whatever.
Yeah.
That's what I was going at. There's kind of just stuff thrown in there that should not have been said.
Yeah.
But I think you and I would even include Dakota a little bit, because he could keep a...
Dakota would hop in the conversation sometimes.
He could keep a sophistication about him.
And you know what? Honestly, on that note, see, one of the also, and this is a vulnerable moment, candid camera, that's another regret I have is kind of me and Dakota's friendship kind of fell apart at the end of high school for various reasons. But again, I think that's indicative of a lot of things in high school. But continue. That was it.
Yeah,
there's
but
just another point.
He could keep a sophistication to him within these arguments. He was very smart and able to not be super offensive and childish. A lot of people, a lot of people would just. It got to a point where people were offending other people, and it was
no bueno.
There was no reason to discuss.
It wasn't helpful. It was
It wasn't going anywhere.
Oh yeah.
But I really enjoyed that. I learned a lot, and that's kind of what got me into learning about different religions. Definitely, you played a big part in that.
Yeah.
And, I was going to church for the first time, and I don't know. And definitely, when I was younger, I was raised Catholic. I had only been to Catholic church.
Which is so interesting.
And then I went, actually St. Mary's is where I went.
Yeah.
And then I went to St. Mary's, and for preschool I went to St. Barb's.
Okay, yep, West Side.
Yeah, and then, so I was doing that stuff. My great-grandma was very Catholic, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
She was into Catholicism deeply,
Yeah.
And then he took me to Christian church later.
Yeah.
So many years later, after I had stopped going to church for a long time.
Which is its own, and...
They're so different.
It's so different, and that's something that's...
eye-opening for me.
Yeah, that's something that's so interesting and so, I want to say, beautiful. So, Catholicism's one expression of Christianity. Then you have, the Eastern Orthodox, my goodness, expression, which is, on the surface, looks very Catholic. Same, but it's a different expression. Then you have, the high church Protestant, which high church just means it's very formal, very Catholic.
Yeah.
And then you have what they call low church. which is what Living Water is. It's the church I'm a part of now. And low church isn't a negative term. It just means that the service is more free flowing. There's, probably contemporary music. It's a little more exciting.
Yeah.
There's less like formality inside of it.
Yeah.
And it's definitely interesting.
Yeah, my girlfriend, she goes to 40 Corners.
Yeah, I know where that's at. I've been at a birthday party that was there one time.
They're very much like Living Water. They're very similar.
Yeah, and
in a sense,
even within low church, there's a
different spectrum.
There's different expressions within that.
Yeah, I think every church is different. Like not even. I don't know how many branches Living Water has. Do they have?
Well, they have
more
two
than
campuses, so it's one church, but just in two locations. So they count as one church, but there's two different congregations, so to speak, but they do the same things, have the same leadership.
Yeah. See, I think even within that, you're going to have some type of differences.
Oh, the Dalton campus and the Massillon campus are totally different.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the feel of it. They do the same thing, same teaching, same everything, but it feels different.
So that's every single place to worship, even in the same religion, or even in the same teachings, like different religions teach about the Bible in different Bibles.
Yeah.
And even within that, there's so many differences that you get from each different place. And I think I really became fascinated with that. You helped bring a part of that,
Yeah.
I got into like many religions, and I just started, I started getting into stuff that I was like, wow, I never knew.
Yeah, there definitely is a lot of expressions of faith. I think I'm trying to figure out where, because you just said so many things, and I'm trying to figure out which.
Yeah, where was I going?
There's many roads in front of me. Which one do I take?
Yeah.
No, I think the conversations were really good, and it's so funny because I look back on that and what I knew then, and kind of what I know now, because I'm still in school now. So kind of how it went is I went to Columbus State for a year. Then me and Jordan got married. I hated Columbus State because it's a community college that's 30,000 people. It's middle of downtown Columbus. But everybody's goal is to transfer to Ohio State or to transfer somewhere else.
Yeah.
And nobody really wants to be there. And I was going to go for a marketing degree and then go get my Master's of Divinity at a seminary. Decided against it, transferred to Ohio Christian University, which is in Circleville. Lived in Columbus, went to school online. I still go to OCU today, and am pursuing a BA in Biblical Studies, and then I want to get my MDiv, which is Master's of Divinity, at a seminary, which is like your master's degree, of course. And there's so many things I know now that I had no clue of what I was talking about.
That's what I always think about is when you start diving into stuff, it's like there's so many things that I was talking about this, I think, with my girlfriend. I was texting her, at 3 a.m, and she wasn't texting
Does
back.
she do the deep talks with you?
A little bit.
I love that.
But sometimes she's just sleeping, and all these thoughts are going through my head at 3 a.m, because I'm very much a night person.
Right.
So I typed it out, and I was talking, or just, whatever, thinking and writing it down. Because that's really good for me. Because if not, I'll lose it. It just goes.
Right.
But if you really start diving into something, it's like an endless possibility. Like, I get into all kinds of different stuff. Like, I'm not a master at anything. I'm not one.
But you have your hand in a little bit of something.
Like, when you think about me, you think anything. Like, what is...
Yeah.
You're a little bit of everything.
You're kind of that open guy to try any.
Yeah. I really well-rounded. That's the way I try to be. But when you really start diving into anything, there's like this endless possibility, and you just keep going. And like, you're like, wow, I never knew that, and you just keep going. And you probably get that same feeling. Is there really a stopping point of where you can top it off, or do you just learn?
So please do forgive me, anybody watching, being anybody. I've become, since I've graduated and like started going to school and doing all these different things, I am a total theology nerd. Like, I get into the nitty gritty stuff that is just not always helpful, but it's just so fun. At least for me. My wife, is not a deep talk person, so I usually bore her to death with like, and then there's this, and then there's this. But I will say there is this idea in my Christian tradition in which in what I would call the Bible Belt, which Northeast Ohio is definitely the Bible Belt, which means that you know somebody who's been to church, or you've been to church like one time, or you have some conception of God. But if you go to, like, for instance, Columbus, I've met people and I've worked with people who never been to church, don't even think about it, don't even know anybody who's been to a church.
Yeah.
And that's not the Bible Belt. There's not really a conception of God. They might think something, oh yeah, I'm sure there's something, but so that's the majority of the population, not, the minority.
Yeah.
Where here it's flip-flop. Majority of the population probably says, well, I believe in God in some way or another.
Yeah.
But one thing in my Christian tradition that you can often find is people are afraid that if you go to seminary, if you learn a lot about God, if you do academic study on Scripture, on theological issues and problems, and how do I talk about this, how do I look at this, they feel like you'll lose your faith. But, for me, the way I see it, and I would think I'm in the majority of those who've gone to pursue academic stuff in Christian stuff, is that I'm laying my cards out on the table. I'm a Christian, I'm a Jesus follower, so I do think that the way to eternal life is through Jesus, not judging anybody else. It's just laying my cards out on the table. So when I say this, it won't be a surprise. Is if God is eternal, if God is the triune God, Father, Son, Holy Spirit, if he is eternal, and there's really no end to his love, there's no end to him, he's eternally strong, eternally smart, all these kind of things, then he's eternally deep and eternally wide. So there's not going to be a point in my life in which I'll ever arrive.
Yeah.
There's a moment in when you arrive in understanding, like, the basic gospel, which is just a fancy word for good news, the basic good news of Jesus. There is kind of the basics. You are now at the level in which you can teach, or you're now at the level in which you can do this or that. But beyond that, beyond, say, being a pastor, beyond, say, if you're in a Catholic tradition, being a priest, a bishop, or even the Pope, beyond those things, it still goes on.
Yeah.
You never fully. Now there's different conversations within that, but those are like real nitty gritty.
I don't know what I was gonna say. I just lost it. Like, it was there.
No, you're good.
And then I was like, where'd it go?
It just goes like this.
For me, it's very similar, but I am more. See, when we were having our conversations, and Dakota was talking about being agnostic, and I didn't even know what that word meant at the time. And then I heard it, and then I was like, I gotta go home and Google it. And then I saw what it was, and I was like, I kind of relate to that a little bit. And then I was like, I want to know more. And then Donnie got me into going to church, and I was strictly going there for learning purposes. I wasn't I don't know, worshiping. I was more just sitting there, seeing what was going on.
You were trying to feel it out. You're like, what's this? Yeah. What's this about? Which, as anybody would do, nobody would just go in full force going, yep, let's do it.
Yeah.
It doesn't, You kind of have to have an experience before you can say, is this for me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And after that, I was like, I gotta dive into this. And that's when I was just like, you know what? I believe there is something. That's what it means to be agnostic. I don't know, agnosticism. I don't know if that's the word.
Right.
But it means you believe there is something, you're just unsure.
Unsure of what that is. Yeah.
And you're open to the possibilities of anything.
Right.
And that's how I still stand today. And I like to learn everything about everything. I'm one of those people that I have to know absolutely everything before I make a decision or anything. And it's like, that's going to take me a lifetime. Yeah. Till I ever, unless something significant happens to me where it just clicks. Or something just clicks. Like how you mentioned that your concussions, and you said that was your point.
There was just like a moment that clicked. It just did it. And it wasn't during the concussions. It was more so like after.
When you had to make that decision.
It was like at the end of December. And like, Walsh, I remember one time I had already kind of made my decision, but I hadn't told anybody. And Walsh came in, and Devin Jordan, who is now a coach at Akron, but he's their wide receivers coach at Walsh, I think. I think that's what he was doing at Walsh. He like got a few of us in the room. He's like, so, what do you guys think about coming on down to Walsh? He doesn't talk like that, by the way. And I was really just dodging, because Walsh is a Catholic school and I'm not Catholic, and my goal was to pursue ministry and go to school for that. And so I was like, well, like, you guys are like a Catholic school, and like, I want to do this, so how can I do that? And he goes, well, like, I'm sure we can figure something out. And it was really just a way to say, like, no, I don't want to do this. And so then schools were still kind of hitting up, but then once that came, I was like, nah, no, it's done.
All right, we're back. I guess I don't have to say that, but
dilly dilly. Even though this isn't Bud Light, this is coffee. Dilly dilly.
Yeah. Go on what you were saying before with what do you record? What's your?
So we were chatting about the setup that Bean has, which is really nice, by the way. No, so what I do now is I'm still in school, and while I'm pursuing that, I am also the next gen pastor at Cornerstone Church, which is in Akron. It's really on like the southern tip of Akron, like southernmost tip of Akron. Boom, we're right there. And so what I do is I oversee the next gen ministries, which counts for children's ministry, youth ministry, and our special needs ministry. So the 3-second kind of description is I oversee the people who oversee the little people. So I oversee the ministry leaders who actually are like hands-on with the kids, hands-on with the students, hands-on with those with special needs. And so that's kind of what I do. Now, we're at a special point where our church is in a lot of transition, so I am pretty hands-on in all of those areas, except for probably special needs. We have a lot of people who are really good at that, so I don't have to be totally hands-on. But with kids and youth, kids and students, I'm pretty hands-on. So that's like what I do, and because of COVID, we've had to like do recordings of everything.
Yeah.
So,
see, what I had to say about that is I had thought the only thing that I wrote down, it's in my notes. The only thing that I wrote down is one thing that I thought would be helpful. I don't even know if I need to see that. Anyways, the one thing that I think would be helpful, and one thing that you are probably getting used to now, because I don't know that you did it before, is like recording stuff.
Yes.
And what I was thinking is for like, it would be easy for myself, because, alright, there's a story behind this with you in it too.
Oh, cheers.
From a while ago. You told me one time, you said, you can't argue the Bible until you've read it. And you handed me a Bible.
Did I?
Yes.
Jeez.
I probably still have it somewhere.
Donnie was straightforward. Why did I?
Yeah.
I was. Sometimes I'm not that straightforward.
Yeah. You gave it to me, and you gave me another book, and you said, read it.
Yeah.
So I sat there, and I was like, all right. It's bad. It's going to be bad when we go to discussion time at lunch. And I was like, I'm going to have some ammo.
Yes.
So I'm sitting there reading it. I read it, and I read it. And I just got burnt out.
You can. Especially if you start page 1.
That's where I started.
Yep.
I was in Genesis, page 1.
Bro.
And I was like...
You'll get... Even Christians get burnt out doing that.
I was like, man, this is hard. And it's difficult. It's a difficult read. For anybody that's a reader, it's
It is, because it's
You have to do a lot of thinking.
It's ancient, at least the Old Testament, is ancient Hebrew meditation literature. So your goal is to never arrive. Like your goal is, like the reason it's there is to read it over and over and over and over and over.
Yeah.
It's not like one of those where it's like, oh yeah, I've read Harry Potter before. I don't really need to read that again.
Yeah.
It's meant to like.
So I think one thing that would really benefit a lot of people, myself
Mm-hmm.
included, if any church, but yours specifically, if you did continuing on in the future, even after all the COVID stuff,
Yeah.
is if you took like a verse or whatever, a certain section, and you read it out loud, you know, however long it is, page long or, you know, however short, and you explain that a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was like, I watch podcasts like almost every day. And I was like, that is similar. I could just sit there and listen to that. And that would help me learn.
You know what's beautiful is that there is a group that does that. So there's two routes I think you're mentioning are you talking like audio Bible, but then also somebody explaining what the heck that just meant?
Yes.
Okay. So there are some definite audio Bible stuff that's really good. My favorite, and this is just pure, it'll just read it to you. It's not telling you what it means.
So you have to go through both?
Yes. So there's an app called Dwell. You do have to pay for it, but the voices aren't monotone. Because if you use like free versions, it's like, in the beginning.
It's not like if I were reading it.
Right. So they actually have different readers that you can pick from, you know, whatever scratches your listening itch.
Yeah.
That are actually like with life in them, not like so dead. But then there's this group, and they are phenomenal. I can't recommend them enough. It's called Bible Project, and they are a non-profit animation studio out of Portland. And so what they do is they seek to make deep, complex theological things digestible for the average person. So what they do is they have a YouTube channel. All their stuff is crowdfunded. So it's totally free. They don't make you pay for anything. Wow. They have home studies that you can do with other people. They have short animated videos on each book of the Bible and like what it means, and then the narrative structure and the literary structure and what you're supposed to actually recognize in it if you were like an ancient Hebrew or if you were a first century Jew. And but then they have videos on themes that run throughout. So for instance, the theme of the temple. Why did the Jewish people have a temple and Christians don't? They lay out how all that works. Or they lay out the water of life. There's this theme that goes throughout the whole Bible, and it's like, well, what the heck does that mean?
See,
what's that symbolism?
That's one thing that I think is going to be different going on. You know, I think it's something that has been different going on in the future, is the way that churches work. But I just mean in teaching in general, though. Like, there's definitely, right now we're in a curve where we don't know what to do, we don't know how to work through this, but I think it's going to impact the future of everything, and there's going to be a new way of learning for everybody, you know?
Oh, 100%.
I mean,
if we stay the same,
a lot of people,
it'll make no sense.
You know, I don't know how to make that sound not bad, but a lot of people don't have the time to go to church.
Yeah.
They do, but...
Yeah, there's,
you know, and a lot of people don't enjoy going to church because of other people or whatever, you know.
Yeah.
They don't feel comfortable or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you're out of town and you don't want to go to a different church, so you can't make it back to your own. So it's very helpful when they have something to listen to or something to worship with, you know.
Yeah.
And that's definitely a game changer.
Yeah, statistically, what you find is people will go to your church online before they actually go to your church. So back in the day, what you used to do is you used to just, you know, on this Sunday we're going to go here, on this Sunday we're going to go here, and...
Somebody's doing that. You know Alexis Whitaker?
Yeah.
She does that. She has Churches of Maslin.
Oh, really?
Every Sunday she goes to a different church and she writes about it, takes a picture of it.
Interesting.
And, like, leaves a review and everything of how it went, and...
Yeah. Well, back in the day, that's how you figured out what church you're going to go to, unless you had a connection to one already through someone else.
Yeah.
Now, because of 21st century technology and stuff like that, most churches stream their services online. Now everybody has to, and it's in varying degrees of quality. I will say I am super pleased with ours at Cornerstone. It's super awesome. Like, it's just high quality tech, high quality, sounds good, looks good.
The mic, that's a big thing.
The mic
we talked
changes
about that.
The mic changes everything. And so what they'll do is they will go on your website, they'll watch your service online, they'll check out what you guys believe, all these kind of things before they even step foot in the door. Yeah. So I think you're totally right. Yeah. There needs to be something for someone to explore.
Yeah. See, because that's how I am. I want to know everything there is, and that would take me a lot of Sundays.
Yeah, that wouldn't that wouldn't be practical. It wouldn't make sense.
Or it'd cost me money and going to college.
Yeah.
For something that I don't necessarily.
Yeah. If that's not your thing, there's no reason to go and suffer through college for.
It is. It kind of is my thing. Yeah. But why am I gonna pay a bunch of money for something that I could figure out a different way to do for free?
And there's different various things. Something the Bible Project is doing is they're creating not a software, but it's this whole separate thing called Classroom, and it's seminary level courses for free, totally free for anybody to use on their own time. They go through it and they learn things themselves.
After this whole thing, I'm gonna rewatch it and probably write down all the links for myself and everybody else.
Oh yeah. So they're in the beta testing right now. But again, it is seminary level, so that's like master's level. So you have to dedicate actual brain power. It's not something you can passively. But it's not for a grade or anything. It's just if you want to go through it, go through it.
It's like a photography class. They have many of those online.
Yeah.
Where they just teach you and you take from it what you want.
Yeah. You know? And then there's also something, I don't personally use this, but I've heard it's a good resource. It's called Theos U, and Theos U is an app. Imagine like a Netflix version of teachings. So you pay $11 a month, and you get complete access to a full set of teachings on specific issues, on specific books, and it's by these 3 or 4 guys.
Are they teachings or are they movies?
They're teachings. So they're like an hour-long course kind of thing. And they don't pretend to give you every angle. They're giving you their angle, which I would agree with much of it, and there's some things that I would deviate from.
It's their personal.
Yeah.
It's going to have their bias. I wouldn't say bias,
100%.
But
Yeah, and that's their goal. They lay all their cards out on the table, and they say, here's who we are, and here's what we're trying to bring clarity on. And they're super great. The guy's name who founded it is Nathan Finocchio. Sounds really funny.
I feel like I've seen that name, though.
But he's a blonde-haired dude. He's hilarious. His Instagram, whether you're a Christian or not, his Instagram is absolutely hilarious. It's great. His humor is perfect.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
I'll have to check it out. I don't know what else we have to say. What have we not touched on?
Yeah.
What does it look like for the future? What's your status within the church now?
So, elaborate on that. What do you mean?
What you kind of explained what your job
was.
What
I do, yes.
But where are you at? Where do you move forward to?
So where do I move forward to? That depends. It depends on how long we're at Cornerstone in Akron. It depends on if we move and where we move to. I would say right now I'm pretty solid in what I am right now, meaning I'm able to do it well, at least I hope so. And there's a lot of room for growth in my job right now. There's a lot of ways it can change. Okay, we're working on getting a children's director hired. I would love for us in the next year to hire a youth director. So then that way my job will then take on a new... Because that's how it's supposed to be. That's the goal. We're starting kind of ground level and we're trying to get it there. Yeah. So then once that happens, that brings a whole new set of things. Where I would like to go from here, and I guess where I would like to go in the long run, is after I graduate from college, undergrad, and then go and get my MDiv, which will be another 3 years. Because, like I said, I had to wash my whole first year because Ohio Christian was like, well, we'll take your credits like electives. And I'm like, so I had to kind of wash the whole first year. Yeah. And then there was a financial aid issue when we moved to Akron. So then that was 6 months. So I'm like a year and 6 months behind. Yeah. Might as well call it 2 years. So then there's like another 3 years of masters. After that, I don't know. I would say I would love, my goal long term is to lead a church.
Yeah.
A dream that I hold very open-handedly.
I know this. I feel like I know this.
You're probably going to know, because I've been saying it since high school.
Yeah.
My dream that I hold open-handedly is to one day move to Columbia.
Yeah.
And do ministry there. It'll look very different, but that's my goal one day. Again, open-handed, and there's so many things that go into that, like being, I don't know if you know this, you might not know this. This might be another whole topic. But I changed my name.
I know. I knew
you
that.
You did?
Okay,
I mean, you can see it. You
yeah.
see it on social media. But I changed my name to my mom's maiden last name.
Yeah.
And it's the whole idea of, because my mom's from Colombia, my sister's from Colombia, my dad's from the U.S. In Colombia, the thing is that if you're American, if you're European, if you're anything other than Latino, you can have, they'll respect you. They'll be very kind to you. They are some of the kindest people. But nobody's really going to take you seriously.
Yeah.
You have to like build this like relational thing that will only bring you to the rest of everybody else.
Yeah.
And so when I've been down there,
I was gonna ask you that.
Yeah.
What was it like?
So when I've been down there, when I went in high school, everybody was like, "Oh, you're a gringo," until they realized that, "Oh, this is my grandma, this is my mom," and then they're like, "Oh no, you're one of us."
Yeah.
Cool. It's tight. So then when we went, I went in 2018, and we're hoping to go this December. We went in 2018. Jordan came with me. It was super fun. I went with my mom. I go through customs, and it was after I changed my name. And the guy, he's like, "Come on forward." He looks like he hates his life, hates his job kind of thing. And then his eyes light up when he sees my passport, and he asked me in Spanish, "Do you speak Spanish?" And I was like, "Yeah, I mean, I speak a little bit." And so we start going back and forth. And it was this moment of instant kinship.
Yeah.
That just happened by changing my name to my mom's maiden last name, which is Sanchez, which is like all my family down there, that's their name. And so by just doing that, it created a whole point of connection, broke down a barrier that if we're going to move there, that barrier is very important of whether it's there or it's not.
Yeah.
It's a trust thing. So
yeah.
Kind of,
you definitely have to build yourself. My grandma was on the podcast, and she was explaining she lived in Hawaii. And Hawaii, even though it's part of the United States,
so different.
Very similar to that.
Yeah.
Like she said, they don't, you're not one of them.
Yeah.
Hawaiian is Hawaiian.
Yeah.
And
there's
you're not,
like
there's a law that you can't own anything unless you're native Hawaiian there. You can't own property. You can't own any property in there.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely different, and I understand that. I had long conversations with my dad about why I did it. Me and my dad have a great relationship. It's nothing bad. And so it really comes down to, and I know that it's difficult to understand on this end. Like, if you live in the United States, if your parents grew up in the United States, you have no other reference point, at least for some people, I would say.
Yeah.
It's difficult for them to understand, why would you change your name? It sounds so dumb.
Yeah, I was really confused. And then I asked you, I was like, why? And then you're like, oh, because it's my mom's maiden name. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I'm not appropriating some random culture. No, it's just my mom's side, which leads into a whole other topic of how I interacted with that side while a child. So that kind of leads into a whole other topic of like how I interacted with that side of the family, how I expressed being Hispanic as a kid.
This is the Adventures of Being. I want to know, what was that adventure like?
What was that adventure like? Man, so as a kid, here's the thing, not to put anybody on blast. I love everybody in my family. They're amazing. I love them so much. They're awesome on both sides, American side and Colombian side. Here's the trouble. My parents had really big issues in their marriage. They divorced when I was 6 months old, or just about, like infant, and they were divorced. So there's a lot of animosity there. So on my dad's side, they struggled to accept me being Hispanic because of my mom. And on my mom's side, they just viewed me as Colombian because I'm literally naturalized. So I'm in the process, when kind of Rona lifts up a little bit, going to Chicago, getting dual citizenship, because it will literally just take me bringing my birth certificate and then my mom bringing her papers, and then me getting my ID.
That's a big step in life, to be naturalized and have citizenship in both. You know, that's a big. I don't know. It seems
milestone almost.
Yeah. Yes.
And that's the thing. I'm naturalized there, so, but it was very difficult for my dad's side to accept that. So a lot of times what they tried to do was kind of, whether intentionally or unintentionally, I have no idea, but at some level they tried to kind of suppress the Hispanic side by not letting me listen to any of the music. I could only listen to it when I was with my mom. By saying like, oh no, you're not Hispanic, you're white. You're white. That's it. And really trying to move me away from that, where my mom on the other side was saying, no, this needs to be celebrated. This is a good thing. Look at what we do. Look at our culture. Look at this. And there's this one point that I remember when I was in junior high, which was really a turning point for me on really embracing my family's culture, embracing my family's heritage, is my aunt messaged me on Facebook. And I love my aunt, my tia Rosa. She said, hey, because we message on, like, they live in Colombia, but I have a relationship with them like they lived a block away because we talk all the time. She messaged me on Facebook and was like, hey, don't forget that this is your country too, meaning Colombia. And that did something to my 14-year-old mind that will forever stay with me, of like realizing like, no, this isn't something to run away from. It's something to be celebrated.
Recently, I have been in that same position where I wanted to discover a lot about my heritage and stuff, because I knew what had been passed on to me from what my mom and grandparents and whoever has told me.
Yeah.
But I wanted to research that more recently. There was a reason. I wanted to go into a Native American reservation.
Right.
And you have to get papers to be able to go onto there, and there's a whole big process that I'm kind of working on. I'll be able to work on it a lot more now, but like throughout the winter, that'll probably be something I want to work on. But that was something I really wanted to do, so now I'm just like diving into this, and I took a DNA test, and it didn't show up. The Native American didn't show up.
DNA test found out I'm 100%. Okay, continue. Sorry.
Anyways. That song. What?
TikTok.
Where did that come from?
TikTok.
Anyways, but I found out that I'm not truly Native American blood.
Yeah.
There was a war. I don't know what war it was exactly.
Yeah.
Like specific battle in Ohio, or, up here.
Right.
Before there was, there were states, but it was. Like,
it was when it was a territory.
Yeah, I don't know exactly. Yeah, but there was a battle, and my family came from Ireland, and they were fighting against the Native Americans, and we got captured, and then they kept them and adopted them. So technically, I'm allowed to be a citizen
Interesting.
in the Native Americans, because there's a doll that has the United States gave Native Americans land, and they gave each person a certain amount of land.
Yeah.
And since they were adopted, they got a piece of land. So technically,
that makes sense.
Yeah, if your ancestor's name was on that, you are then able to do that. So we were talking about heritage and stuff, but yeah, so then I'm able to do that.
That's wild.
That's a long process because I have to find out my mom's dad. I have to have
their dad, their mom, their
all the way back to whoever the ancestor that's actually on that is.
Yeah.
But I found out who's on there, so now I can link it backwards.
Ah, that makes sense.
It's still
a long process.
Yeah.
And
I have to have like forms of identification for that as well.
Right.
So that's another difficult thing.
Right.
And I gotta find like marriage documents or
yikes,
birth certificates and things like that.
And proof and all that stuff.
That's the word I was looking for, yeah.
And that's the difficult thing. Like, I know for me, if you knew me growing up, I would never, as a kid, I would have never told you the million times that my mom made empanadas.
Yeah.
I
didn't even know. There was one time in football when Coach Moore came in, you started opening up.
Yeah.
We did the tip of the iceberg thing or whatever it was.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there and I was like, wow, I thought me and Donnie were best friends. I was like, I never even knew.
There was so much when I was growing up. I was a very closed book.
You were, but you you portrayed yourself as an open person.
There were things I would talk about and things I wouldn't talk about.
Yes.
I was very compartmentalized. And so I wouldn't talk about all the times. Me and my mom would be in the car listening to reggaeton, listening to Daddy Yankee, listening to...
You got me into that, and you also got me into Christian rap.
Yeah.
You did... I would say me and Benito, you definitely expressed a lot more to us than most people.
Oh, definitely. And
definitely Benito.
You wouldn't catch me, listening to Juanes, talking about my grandparents or the fact that my family owns an empanada restaurant there, or my aunt's a director at a university at Externado, which is in the capital in Bogota. Like, all these different things, I would have never talked about.
Yeah.
And so for people who grew up with me, they're like, oh, so all of a sudden you're Colombian? And it's like, no, it's just I didn't tell you about it. And since my parents are divorced, life at my dad's and life at my mom's are totally different. And because I was going to Maslin and all this stuff, I lived primarily with my dad. So nobody usually, I have friends who never met my mom.
I never met your mom.
Yeah, and so I had friends who never met my mom. I had friends who, I had people who thought my mom was out of the picture just because I thought that. I thought honestly was she out of the country? No.
See, I thought that.
No, she lives in Jackson.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's the thing. But there's a whole that side that was deeply Colombian in everything.
Yeah.
And so
you didn't throw yourself into that, so you didn't want to.
Right. So because my dad's side was like for instance, there was a time when I was really little, before I can remember, my mom and my aunt and everybody would speak Spanish to me, and I would just understand it. And if they said grab this, I'd just go boom. And then when I started going to elementary school, learning English, reading in English, and all this kind of stuff, and because my dad and it's more so that side of the family, again, probably unintentional, just because of the animosity, kind of saying that, kind of portraying that Hispanic things are bad. You don't want to, hey, whoa, it's embarrassing when your mom speaks Spanish in public. So I had that mindset. So for me, being Colombian was something to hush hush.
Yeah.
Mom, stop speaking in Spanish. People are going to look at us weird. I would say that all the time.
Yeah.
And she would she would be like, boy.
Yeah.
So.
See, it probably was. I would say it's unintentional for the most. From what I understand.
Oh, it was absolutely unintentional.
It's easy to be like, well, you can't do that in class. Well, you can't do this at football. Nobody's going to understand you. Nobody's going to get that. And it's easy to push it that way.
Yes. And so that's kind of how it was. So for me, for the longest time, I just didn't talk about it.
Yeah.
And I would just, if somebody was like, oh, and I don't mean white in the sense of skin tone. Yeah. I mean, because, the United States is weird in the sense that, being Hispanic...
White is an ethnicity?
Yeah, so when it comes to being Hispanic and you fill out forms, because I would have to do that on forms. Yeah. For school, when you take those big tests and you have to fill out, your demographic.
Yeah, I always prefer not to say.
Yeah, I always had to say Hispanic. So here's the thing, though, is when you fill out, like, government documents, and you have to, like, Hispanic is, like, its whole other subject.
Yeah.
And then there's, like, are you white Hispanic? Are you black Hispanic? Are you Asian Hispanic? Like, they don't... It's, like, a weird... The United States categorizes it really weird. So when I say, like, white, I mean more of the cultural... You don't really have anything else. You're just kind of European.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So whenever anybody would just say, like, oh, like, you're white, I just would not say anything because it's like, oh, I just kind of don't want to talk about that because it's a bigger topic. And so then it was kind of...
Especially as a young kid and not realizing...
Yeah, you try to fit in. You try to...
And that's a point that I like to say a lot on, like, social media and stuff. I absolutely hate when people say white because nobody, like, it's a color and people act like it's their ethnicity, but if you really dive into your heritage and stuff, you're not what is white, and you're not even Caucasian, because Caucasian are people,
a whole other...
Yeah, that's like a country of its own.
Yeah.
It's a group of people in Mount Caucasus or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I actually figured that out
Literally,
somehow.
yeah.
But I'm not Caucasian. I'm not white. I'm a mix of this, and that, you know?
And
like
usually...
different kinds of European and stuff.
Yeah, and usually what you get when you hear people, at least in the United States, I don't know about anywhere else, when they say that, oh, I'm white. I'm expressing my whiteness, whatever. I don't know how they would say it. That usually, that sounds pretty bad.
I've never heard that.
No, nobody actually says that, but they're kind of like, you know, I'm white, what do you expect from me, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Is they're really just expressing the United States, but the United States in itself doesn't really have a culture. If you want to express
it does,
but it's like...
But nobody celebrates the culture of the United States.
No, because personally for me...
It's a melting pot.
Yeah, it's a melting pot, and
but how do you celebrate that?
That's the thing, and this is going to be a hot take.
Yeah.
Personally for me, American culture's very uncompelling. Like, I don't find it compelling. And that's okay. Yeah. I'm not... For me, America is not the end-all, be-all. I love the United States. It's very great, and it has its benefits. It has its downfalls.
Yeah, I definitely... I love this country.
Oh, I do too.
You know, it's very great.
Yeah.
And there's just not a specific thing that you can celebrate because it's stuff from everywhere.
Yeah, the food.
There has been like things that have developed through. You know, you can't get a cheeseburger from McDonald's anywhere else.
Cheeseburger, fries, football, baseball.
Yeah.
Like a lot of those things are American. Yeah. New York.
And you can celebrate that, I guess.
Yeah.
But it's not something that has been around for...
It's very young.
Yeah,
it's very
young, and it's hard for people to grasp onto that.
Yes, and that's the trouble. So, like, what really heritage, and this is something my mom never understood and still doesn't understand, and we would talk about it all the time. She goes, why... I never understood, like, why people in the United States say, oh, I'm Irish, or I'm German, or, you know, XYZ.
Yeah.
And of course I know the answer to it, and it's because the United States is one of the only countries in the world that was built on an idea, not a people group.
Yeah.
So they said, hey, we're going to bring this idea to this land of... It's very much Enlightenment thinking. So the United States Constitution is very much influenced by the French Revolution that happened around that time.
Yeah.
So it's very much on liberty and you know, freedom, and kind of what we have in the Constitution is Enlightenment thinking that happened in the Enlightenment. So it's built on an idea where it's like, if you go to England, there was a people there that just became, then they came together and they became England, Great Britain, but they were a people.
Yeah.
So that's their biggest point of influence.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, policies can change, government structure can change.
But they're going to celebrate.
But they're going to be a people.
Yeah.
In the United States, it's not so much that. We don't care about how the people change. We're like, but we hold on to the Constitution like this because that's the idea, the foundation.
Yeah.
So it's just different.
Yeah, that is probably the biggest... That was a great explanation, honestly.
Yeah, it's
because
just... I've learned that
a lot of people don't understand that. You're right.
I learned that in a political science class that one year at Columbus State.
Yeah.
Woohoo!
See, it's weird. I was only in school for 2 months, but I picked up so much out of that. And I was like, how did I hated it, and I was like, how did I pick up so much in that? Like, things that I repeat to myself today, and I'm like, I learned a lot. I wish I could go to school and, like, I wish I had the wealth to pay for school and just go to whatever class that I liked and just take it in and no test or anything, just learn it for myself.
Yeah.
Because I would never stop.
Right.
I would just keep going. I love knowledge. I love soaking it in. I've learned so much just from this podcast. Like, I've learned a lot about myself and other people. And one thing I've struggled with a lot was talking to people, and I've never been on camera before.
Yeah.
Until I came in. I feel like it was a shock for somebody, like, Bean's doing a podcast?
What?
And I was like, yeah, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Like, have you ever been on camera? And I'm like, nope, I hate being on camera. Like, I don't know.
That.
Maybe I do, maybe I don't. But I learn little things each time. And I learn how to, like, keep it on a certain track. Sometimes we've been all over the place a little bit, but it seems like we've kind of, we're not completely all over the place.
No, we've taken a natural progression.
That's one thing I needed to be able to pull people back in. And I needed to... I sit and watch them, and I'm like, oh, here's what I can do better. Here's what I do better next time. Here's how I progress and do this. So that, in the end, we're getting to a great quality. We're getting into great subject matter that people can dive into.
Oh, yeah.
And it's definitely, another thing, is the type of people that I'm trying to connect with to get on here, like, from different aspects of life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my biggest thing, is what I wanted to do with
an adventure.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely... big part of it, but I wanted to get average people. I never wanted to get like somebody just because they're super
right. You sold this many books, come on my podcast.
Yeah, I wanted people with real stories that people can relate to. Not that anybody famous or super whatever can't give you a real story, but it's nice to hear it from real people that are in careers that you can see or you're experiencing every day, or people that are going on things that maybe you would like to get into, or different aspects. And that's definitely what I hope to see more, and that's kind of people I'm starting to meet and learn more about, and that's great for me. It
makes total sense.
It's great for me, and it's good for other people to
because it's an opportunity to learn, hear a different side, hear a different story.
Anything before we leave? Any shout outs? You already shouted out like 20 people, I'm sure.
I know. Goodness. Really funny shout out. One, shout out to my wife, because if she watches this, which she probably will, she'll be like, oh, love you. But then, shout out to anybody who's watching from Maslin.
Oh, yeah.
Because I probably haven't talked to you in a while.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Go Tigers, I guess.
Go Tigers. But
I wish them luck on their season, man. I always do. I wish I could be there to watch.
It was a tough game last night, but it's okay.
Oh,
it's okay.
I was watching, and I was like, oh, they're going to win this. They're going to win this. And then I saw the tweet that said 4 minutes left, and they scored.
Yep.
And I was like...
It was rough. Yeah, but no, I love everybody from Maslin. They're amazing. Yeah. Everybody, I have the same phone number that I've had since 5th grade, so there it is.
Yeah, me too. No, I don't. No, mine's changed like once, but
I love it.
Anyways, talk to us, whatever.
Yeah.
And be sure to click the link.
Click the link.
And subscribe.
Ooh, and click that bell.
Yeah. Whatever. Do it all.